Hey guys, drdecks here. Today I have been framing on a deck, on a curved deck, and I've gotten this question a lot in the past and we just haven't had the opportunity, or the stars haven't aligned. Well, guess what? The stars are aligned and we are going to show you how we're building out this curve. It's a small section, but I think you guys will get it, and I think it's very helpful because I had to figure this out on my own. There's lots of ways you can do things. This is just one way, okay? It may not be the way you would do it. It may not be the way I would do it in a particular circumstance, but this is how we're doing it today. So if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So what I have here is I'm building a curved deck, right? A curved section of a deck. We also are going to have a curved surface border on top when we lay the decking. We have to have support for that curved surface border along the length of the border. Usually when I'm doing curved surface borders, every 12 inches isn't satisfactory to me. I want to be able to put screws wherever I want to put them on a curved board. So I'm going to solid block this entire space for that curved surface border. But there's a point in this curve where things change. You can go from using standard blocking, and then you have to get into an alternate way to finish out the outside edge of your curve. And that's where things get tricky. And that's why we're considered experts at what we do. Right? So basically what I have this mocked up right now. It's a 2x12 that I've cut on the curve that I want, and it's in place, it's locked in place with some timber locks just on the back side, some 4-inch timber lock construction fasteners made by Fasten Master. So anybody that doesn't know what that is, Google it and you'll get on speed with the rest of us, okay? So basically, I have this 2x12. It's just temporarily fastened to the inside of this joist. It's very loose right now. If you came over here and walked on this, it's gonna sag and droop and dip. So we don't want that. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you some techniques that will help you so that that won't dip anymore. So what we did first was we created our curve. Then I clamped this board to the inside of this joist. Then I fastened it. Then I drew the curve on this board. Now from here, we're gonna have another piece of AZEK PVC that's gonna run along this line all the way around, okay? This technically is not the outside of the deck. It's outside of the frame, but then we still have an outside rim joist, we'll call it, which is our piece of AZEK that we're gonna put in here because it's flexible. But then now we have to add auxiliary support into that so that we can help keep this from wanting to dip. Right now I've got a clamp in here. If I take this clamp down, this thing's gonna dip even more. And you can see it's just really weak. It's not gonna support anything like this. This is unacceptable. We have to create a system for this to be stable. So if you'll notice, I have a partial beam sticking out down here. So I can use the support of this beam to help elevate and lock this into position so it doesn't move around so much. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna run a joist or a piece of support from here underneath this board into this, from this point here, and it's gonna go like this, and I'm probably gonna take it as far this way as I can so that it will actually support all of this. Now, when I get over into this corner, I'm also gonna have a post going down onto this concrete right here, all right? So what that'll do, it'll definitely make it easy to support this end. So I don't really have to worry about supporting this end so much because I have this concrete. If I didn't have this concrete here, I'd probably be putting a footing in the ground right here. Sometimes you gotta do that. It just is what it is. Like I said, we're making this up, right? So it could change a little bit. So the first thing I need to do is I know 5 3/4 of an inch is what I need in between here. Well, most of our joists or our framing is either 5 1/2 or 7 1/2. So instead of taking a 2x8 and ripping out, you know, 1 1/4 inches out of it, I'm going to take a 2x6, which is 5 1/2, and I'm just gonna shim it up 1/4 inch on this beam because I only need to shim about 6 inches. But that's gonna give me that extra support I need to keep this from doing this. Okay, so that's the first thing we're gonna do. We're gonna create that piece. So let's do that now. Okay, I'm gonna change my philosophy a little bit. Since I know I'm putting a post back here and that it'll support this area here with the post, I'm going to move this board out this way more. I'm still gonna catch the beam, right? I'm still gonna catch the beam with this board, but it's going to give me better support so that I don't have to worry about blocking this out. If I do it this way, I only have to install this one board and a post, which I'm gonna do anyways. If I move it in and I do it like this, you see how much more space I have overhanging or cantilevering past this joist? And I may have to add additional auxiliary support into here if I do it that way, which would be adding just little blocks here and there and so on and so forth. So either way, it'll work. I'll still have to add some auxiliary support for our frame board or our outside rim joist. I'll still have to do that because I need to support it every 12 to 16 inches. I think I like the idea of bringing it out this way to reduce the type and size and the kind of blocking that I'm gonna have to do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna overhang this past this point. So I need to come up with this line right here. So I'm just gonna pull it past it and I'm gonna draw it on the bottom of this. As long as we're close to it, we're good. And now that I have it drawn, I'm gonna go ahead and draw the sides. So I'm gonna cut this with my chainsaw. We just did a video on doing this, how to cut obtuse angles with our chainsaw. So check that video out as well. Okay, so could you imagine trying to cut this with a skill saw? You really can't do it. And this is a crazy angle. This is like a 75-degree angle, okay? Which is nuts. All right, so now that I have the sides of it drawn, I'm gonna pull it back and I'm gonna line those two lines up as if it was gonna be installed from underneath this board here. Okay, I'm very close. Sometimes when things move around, you might have a high spot in something. You know, clamps will help you keep one end together, especially when you're working by yourself and you don't have somebody to help you hold something. There, now we're locked in. Now I can adjust this side without that moving. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and kind of get an idea of where I want this board to come through at. And I'm just gonna mark it on top just for reference reasons. Now that that's on top, I'm gonna go ahead and draw this out. Okay, so this board, once it's underneath, will flush out to this board here. So now I have two really funky angles I have to cut with my chainsaw to make this board work. So all I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go ahead and clamp this. It's pretty sturdy, okay? I'm gonna take my chainsaw and I'm gonna go ahead and cut that angle. All right, now I'm gonna flip this around and do the same thing over here. Draw where these go. And this angle is 77 degrees, so it's even more, a little steeper than the last one. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna take some of the excess out of this board. So I'm just gonna cut this off because it's just excess and it's in my way and I can have an easier time cutting with this chainsaw if this is out of my way. So here we go. All right, now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna kind of do the same thing we just did on the other side, but over here. Just to FYI, having a really sharp chain on your chainsaw will make this task a lot easier, okay? So it's really nice when you have a fresh chain to make these style cuts. Just letting you know. All right, so now both my angles are cut. I still need to hit this with a little end grain solution, and you can see that this board is hanging down because my board won't fit quite right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a cheater clamp to kind of help me raise this up. Okay, and that's looking pretty good as far as the support goes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this in really close to this edge because that's kind of where I drew it from. Oh, first of all, let's put some end grain solution on it. Anytime we make a cut on any board, on any of our jobs, we always protect the ends with some end grain solution. I use a product called Q-Tech Extreme. It's a sealant and a stain, but it works, it absorbs really good into material, especially into the pressure treated hemlocks that we have up in the Pacific Northwest. So we're gonna drop some on both sides so that when we do this install permanently, we don't have to worry about this decaying prematurely. So we'll go over and get that on there. I'll be right back. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna temp this up. Clamp right here. You can kind of see where I put these two marks, right? Remember? I put those two marks. And I'm gonna pull this out just a little bit. And if you drew a line through this board, my joist is basically on those marks. So that's awesome. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to clamp this up on both ends. Okay, now, right now, there's a little bit of a gap because I needed 5 3/4 of an inch from the bottom of this plate to the top of my beam. Well, this joist is like 5 5/8, maybe 5 5/8 plus. So I'm gonna have to put a little bit of a shim under here before I fasten this down. But before I fasten it down to this beam, I'm going to attach it to the top of this 2x12 that I've cut out, and I'm gonna also attach it to the side of the joist to create some stability and some rigidity. And that's what this is all about, is creating this so it doesn't bounce. You can see right now, it's still bouncing because we haven't attached it and it's not touching this beam. Once I lock it in, we're gonna be dialed, okay? So the only thing that's gonna be flexible is back here, but remember, we're gonna go ahead and install a post in that later to keep that from sagging. Right now, we're trying to catch this 5 feet of material. Like, how else would you do this and keep this joist from going like this, or this surface border? What we're doing is we're creating a support for our surface border, but we're also creating support for our field boards that are running this way. Because we could put screws here, but if we didn't have anything solid here, we wouldn't be able to secure all these deck boards that are getting installed on the outside of this portion of the deck. So this piece that we're putting in right now is multi-purpose. Not only is it gonna catch our curved surface border, it's going to catch all these field boards that are going to be installed here in the near future. So basically, I'm checking 2 things to make sure before I start placing this thing, this joist, and finalizing the elevation that I want for this plate. I'm just gonna check it for level. And a couple ways I do that is I actually check it with a torpedo, and we're looking pretty good as far as elevation goes for that. And then I'm also gonna check it and make sure it's in the same plane with a longer level, just to make sure that it's not anything funky going on. And it looks pretty good. So it's in line with this joist and the joist after it. So that's really all I'd really need to check. I don't have to continue back 10 feet. I just want to make sure we're close. With that being said, I still have this clamp here kind of holding things together. So you can see I have a little bit of a gap underneath this joist. Like I knew that originally when we started this. I'm gonna put a couple shims in here. I don't want to put too much shim. I just want to make it snug. And I'll add a couple screws through those shims to make sure that this stays put. So now that I have it placed exactly where I want it, everything's mocked up, my end grain solution's on, and everything else is done. I still have to end grain this, but I don't have to worry about that right now. I'm gonna start putting this thing together. All right, so I have 2 different length screws. I have some 4-inch timber locks. We use a jillion of these, as well as some 3.5-inch guard dog screws. We use a jillion of those as well. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and screw down through the top of this into that 1.5 inches. And what I'm trying to do is hit the center line of this joist that's under here. I'm gonna put a screw about every 12 inches. Over here, I know I've got this 1.5 inches coming in, and these screws are a little long, so I'm gonna put them at a slight angle so that they don't poke out the back. Nice. All right, so now that I know, so this is to elevation, this is in, I can pull this clamp off and get it out of the way. Now what I need to figure out, okay, where's center on this side? So here I'm 1.5 inches away from my joist. So if I want to be to the center of that joist, I got to be 1.5 inches plus 3/4. So at 2.25 inches, that should be the center point of my joist that's down here. So let's go ahead and draw that up. Okay, I have a screw over here. This clamp as well can be removed. Now I'm gonna take my Stabilo level, because it's a nice straight edge. I could use a chalk line as well for this. And I'm putting it on the center of this screw and my center line I just drew. And I'm gonna draw a straight line between those 2 points, and that's where I know where to put fasteners for the rest of this top plate. Okay, every 12 inches or so, I'm gonna drop a screw this way. Okay, that's done. So the only thing I have to do now, or a couple more things I have to do, I wanna add some support going this way. I have a few screws in already, but I'm gonna add some more 4-inch timber locks. So these will go into the side of this joist and lock into the back side of this 2x12. I could probably release this right now, but I'm gonna wait just a minute. Okay, so let's get those installed. See, I have one right here, and this is all loose. So what I can do is I can put one right about here. It won't poke all the way through, and it's really gonna lock this corner in nice and tight. Whenever I get closer to ends, or if I have an obstruction in my way where I'm trying to fasten something, usually I'll pre-drill the hole. So I'm gonna go ahead and pre-drill this. Okay, I actually saw that pinch in a little bit. And now I can just go back and start adding fasteners wherever I want, about every 16 inches or so to make it tight. So I've got one there, I've got one here. I'm gonna go and put one there. Make sure I didn't blow that out. I can't even get my hand under there. It felt pretty solid. And then I just need to finish doing that down here. Probably just need 2 more fasteners. Nice. Got one here, got one here. Okay, that's all we need. Now the last thing, when I pulled on that, I pulled my shims out because I haven't tacked them in. So this is gonna be pretty important to keeping this thing together. And I'm a little too tall. So I don't know if I actually need a shim on this end. I might just need one right here. Let's clamp this down. Okay, that's pretty locked down to the beam. Let's double check that longer level and make sure that we're not out of whack. And we still look really good right here, guys. So I'm gonna say that's a win. And we'll go ahead and we'll pre-drill that. We'll leave that shim in. I'm gonna take this shim out because I don't think we need it. And we're gonna lock this thing down. If you really wanted to, you could come back in and probably add some steel to that to really keep it locked down. I think with all the other stuff we're doing, because remember, we're gonna be putting on a piece of fascia here. We're gonna be hanging legs down for skirting. We're gonna have vertical skirting in here. And we also have a post back here. So with all those extra adds, I don't think that this thing's gonna be too wobbly. So let's pull that clamp. All right, we got great support on this edge of this deck now. So that's done. The only other thing I'm gonna do is when I come in here, guys, I have to put a piece of curved fascia, and I'm gonna use a piece of 1x6 AZEK, some PVC. You'd be really surprised at how stable this becomes when we do this. But when we do this, I'm gonna put in this piece. So what I have to do is about every 16 inches, 12 to 16, I'll just say every 12 inches, because that works out pretty good. That's perfect. I gotta have a little bit of support right here, so when I put some screws in this, I have something to attach to, because I can't just hang a piece of fascia or rim, like it's gonna act like an outside rim joist, right? So I need it to be stable. I wanna be able to pull on it and tug on it. So I'm gonna build that. That's gonna be my trim sector. When I put in this board here, and then when I put my real fascia on here to cover that, I'm gonna need that as support. So I have to create the support here. And I'm probably gonna have to do that a little bit on some of these other sections as well. But what I'll do is I'll just add a block. Like if you keep these at 90 degrees, you can just take any block. Here's an example. I only need this to be 5.5 inches tall, but I can just take a block and keep it 90 here and cut it to this width, rip it down, and then come back and put some screws in it, and then that becomes my piece that I can attach to. I'll have 3 of those in this 3-foot run, and that'll make the fascia, or the outside rim joist really stable. And that's how you would actually create this particular section of this deck for a curved deck. We will have extra videos as I can show you other ways to create this outside portion of this curve. I will, but I hope that helps somebody out there. I know it will, because I've had this question and I haven't shown it. So if you liked the video or you did learn a little something today, you know what to do. Click that subscribe button, hit that bell icon to be notified when we're putting out new content. Don't forget to like this video, leave us a comment below. Let me know what you thought of it, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.